Okay, well, depending on how you count down and what your countdown timer clock says, we are just about 7 weeks to the exam, about 38 days if you want to be a little more precise as I'm talking to you today. 7 weeks, somewhere in that 38 to 40 day range to the bar exam, is historically probably the worst week of the entire process for almost everyone taking the bar. And that would describe and involve me as well. I hate this week on every level. Let me describe a scenario to you and let's see if you fit in. This might have been a week in which you were much more irritable than you've been previously. Sound familiar? You found yourself going off on the librarian, or the barista who gave you a venti skinny mocha with whipped cream instead of 2% and non-fat. I don't know how they did that. I mean, it says right here. Okay. Anyway, maybe that was just me. You might have been unhappy with your family. You might have been unhappy with your friends. You might have been unhappy with your spouse or partner. You might have been unhappy with the people you're studying with. You may have thought that the bar exam review course was made up and run by a group of idiots and people that hated you and people that clearly didn't understand the trauma that you were going through. You remember last week I talked about reality setting in, and it did for many of you. It was a tough weekend. And what happened is that as reality set in, you began to think, wow, everyone hates me. The bar examiners hate me. If I get one more request for character and fitness, I'm going to really go postal on somebody. I might start tweeting, and before you know it, they'll appoint a special prosecutor. You get the idea. It's a tough week. It's a bad week. It might have been a week in which you decided that you were going to just keep grinding through, and then you realized that if you tried to memorize an outline or to write another essay, you swore to God, if you had to do one more MBE question, well, that was just going to be it. Does that sound familiar? Any part of it? Did you feel any of that? I would suspect that for many of you taking the exam 38 days from now, there were some moments in the last week, if not the entire week, that felt a lot like what I've just described. Some of you described to me suddenly having back pains and physical ailments. Some of you talked about having fights that just suddenly came out of nowhere with people that you didn't expect to be fighting with. There were moments for many of you where the whole week just was filled with stressors. And the fact that I can describe that week and predict it and with certainty know that I'm going to hear back from my students about those kinds of things this week doesn't mean that I'm clairvoyant. What it means is that it is predictable. It happens twice a year at the same time, each bar exam cycle. It is absolutely predictable. And I feel like if I could protect myself in Kevlar during this week, I probably should. Well, the fact that it is predictable should tell you, first of all, that it's absolutely normal. If you're feeling that way, if anything I've just described sounds familiar to you, it's not because you're crazy or because you become unhinged or that something is wrong with your personality or your approach to study. What it means is that you're basically pretty normal. And here's the reason, and this is really, really important. If you're in a hurry, like most bar takers, you've already said, oh my God, he's been talking for 5 minutes. What's the point? What's the point? Well, here's the point. At this stage before the bar exam, there is a huge disconnect between how much you know and how close the exam is. Here's the problem. Imagine that this is your capability with the bar. And up until this point, it's been going up slowly, and it's fine. Now, out here to the side is the bar exam itself, and suddenly it's entered into the frame. You can see there's a little bit there. Well, you notice that there's a big difference between where you are and the bar exam. Up until now, when the bar exam was out of the picture, it didn't really matter where you were because it didn't really matter. It was just a long way away. But now to most bar takers, the bar exam starts to seem imminent. Well, as we go along, what's going to happen is that your performance is going to get better, the bar exam is going to get closer, and hopefully we meet like this. But right now, wow, there's a big difference. And it is real to people, and it feels real to people. And so what happens is that we start to go, and it feels really bad. The truth is this. If you had to take the bar exam today, this day, right now, most of you would fail. That's the reality. Most of you would fail. That's terrible, isn't it? I mean, what's he saying? Most of us would fail? Well, actually, it's not bad at all because the exam is 40 days away, 38 days away. And 40 days, if you're biblical, 40 days is forever. I mean, think about it. 40 days is a significant period of time. It's a long, long time. And when you think about that, think about over the next 38 or 40 days, you are going to get considerably better at just about everything having to do with taking this test. If you don't believe that, think back 40 days. Go back 40 days in time from now, and most of you won't remember what it was, what you were doing, what you were thinking. Look at your work from 40 days ago. It doesn't bear any resemblance to what you're doing now. So if you've improved that much in the past 40 days, why wouldn't you improve over the next 40 days, right? But we don't see it that way. Somehow we get to thinking that the exam is imminent. Now, if you can't see a way for your bar performance to improve, then there is, in fact, something wrong. And you really should be talking to me or getting in our Facebook group, or if you're not in our course and you're watching this later, talking to your bar review. But the reality is that right now, there is such a huge disconnect between the impending closeness of the exam and the actual ability that you have, that we get this internal massive amount of tension or dissonance, and it causes an emotional meltdown. It's a week that I think no one in the bar review industry enjoys because, frankly, it's a week when most of our students are simply impossible to deal with. They're a little bit like the trip to the zoo. Does it stay that way? Well, the good news is no, it does not. This is the worst. This week is the bottom of that valley. The week that follows this meltdown point, which comes for most people, I think, over the last few days, and it may be that the meltdown will come for you over this weekend. It can't be predicted quite that tightly, but it will come for most people. And I hope it doesn't come at all for you. But if it does, once you've had your meltdown, what you're going to see is that typically things start to get better and better. And so to some extent, I try to provoke some meltdowns this week just to get it over with, just to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and get us past that. And so it's not a bad thing to have your meltdown, but once you've had it, then things start getting better and you realize that in fact you're improving and that you start seeing gains towards your goal of being able to pass the exam. You start seeing your performance level coming up and whoa, wait a minute, as we come up, the bar exam gets closer and we dock. It works. Now, there's a point at which your skill and the date of the test coalesce, and hopefully that'll be the day of the exam. But for most people, what starts to happen from where we are right now is that they get better and stronger with their studies. You'll start to see improvement in your writing from this stage on. You'll also see an improvement, if you're in our course, I think, in your ability to do MBE questions. You'll see an ability to improve your study habits if you're using the paraliminals, or if you're using photo reading, if you're following the strategies in the study guide that we've got. And as those things happen, the stress level from preparing for the test begins to dissipate. It goes away. But at this stage today, you're absolutely aware that there's so much ahead of you still to be learned, and you don't know it all, and the exam looks like it's right around the corner, and that's pretty scary. Now, let me say this, and I want to be very clear about it. Most of the time when I talk to people in this meltdown stage, they act as if, and in fact, they'll often say to me, the exam is coming up. It's really, really close. Well, in a sense, that's true. I mean, it's 38 days away right now. But I have to tell you that in the bar exam world, much like dog years, 38 days is a really, really, really long time. Day by day, by day by day, 38 days is forever. And I have done this so many times now that I absolutely know that students think that the exam is just going to be right there when it's not. This process drags on and on and on, not just for me, but for most of our students. You'll get so much done over the next 38 to 40 days that you'll be astounded at what you know if you look back from this point of time on the day of the exam. So if you're feeling distressed right now, or if you become distressed over this weekend, recognize, first of all, that that is perfectly normal. Secondly, recognize and understand that that feeling will not last. It will go away. You will start to feel better. Third, take some positive steps that you can employ right now. One, as I said, is just to look back 38 or 48 days from where you were today and see how far you've come just in that period of time. Maybe 38 days ago, you weren't even thinking about taking the bar or studying for the bar. Doesn't matter. But wherever you were 38, 40 days ago, look at it and evaluate where you are today. It'll be different. And then resolve to just do a better job today. Do a better job of writing one essay today. Do a better job on preparing a performance test today. Do a better job of studying for the multi-state today. Pay attention to what we're telling you in our course, or if you're in another course, to what your bar review provider is telling you. Now, in our course, obviously, I'm very specific about these timeframes, what's happening, where I expect you to be. But interestingly enough, most bar takers, no matter who I'm talking to and what their perspective is, they think they're behind at this stage. I hear it over and over and over again. The reality is that unless you're sitting in one of those big box bar reviews where they're running DVDs at you every day and everyone's studying Torts Tuesday at 2 p.m., well, you're probably not ahead or behind. You're on your schedule, your pace. That's the beauty of home study. That's why you chose home study, and you should feel good about that particular decision. But if you're in one of those big box courses and you're listening to this message later, just understand you're really not ahead or behind. Work at your own pace. Do what you can at your own pace. So if you're well advanced in our study guide today, that's great news. I'm excited for you. And if you're not as far along, don't fret. Just keep moving. Keep working through it. And if you're in that big box bar review, well, I think you made a kind of a lousy choice, but do the best you can. Keep working through it. Work at your own pace, and ultimately you'll have a shot. You'll come out no matter what on the other end. And if you're in our course, I can tell you, you will be well prepared for the exam. Above all, recognize that what you're feeling right now does not have to remain static. It doesn't have to stay in place. These are choices that you make. You choose to be unhappy. You choose to be irritated. You choose to be stressed out. You choose to get into arguments with people around you, or you choose not to. You do something nice for somebody else. It's a nice weekend coming up. As we're talking right now, we're coming up on Father's Day, but this message would be just appropriate before the February exam. Do something nice with your family, with your friends. Take some time off and enjoy yourself. It's a great opportunity to say thanks to the God of your understanding, to appreciate the joys that you have in your life. If you're a parent, to think about your children. The most amazing comments I get from students after they pass the exam is typically when they tell me what it was like to tell their children that they passed the exam, no matter how old the kids were. You know, there's something there about that. And if you take that broader perspective, then these minor irritants this week don't seem quite so bad. In other words, you don't have to walk around like Eeyore this week. You don't have to make this the worst week of your entire life. You can choose to be better, different, and to feel better as you go forward. Now, when I come back next week for our next message, I'm pretty confident that most of you will be feeling better. You may have had some stress, and you certainly will have had a tough week. But for most people, it will be not quite the same as it feels today. So hang in there, make next week a productive week, have a good weekend and a good week of work, and know that things will get better in the weeks and days to come. I promise it does get better, and this dreaded 7th week will eventually be over and done, and we move on to greater things.